Welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. We're going to get stuck right in, starting off with Henry's deadlifts. Now, Henry, we left him hanging last week. We had the community comment on his lifts, and we're going to dive right in. I'm going to tell you what I think. And what I think about Henry's deadlift is that it is picture perfect. Honestly, Henry, you are having a wonderful sort of push off the floor. You'll notice from this position, he's pretty much right in line over the bar. You'll notice he initiates the lift with a push, right? The knees extend. His back angle stays relatively the same the whole time off the floor, and he's got a good solid lockout. So watch that one more time. Honestly, Henry, just keep practicing, keep doing what you're doing. This is a great example of how deadlifts in a conventional style should be done. This looks fantastic. So overall, really great deadlifts. Like you said, your deadlifts are progressing well. So honestly, Henry, just stick with it, man. You're doing a good job. Just a quick note, if you'd like to be featured on Form Check Friday, go ahead and click the annotation on screen right now and figure out how to get your video on this screen. All right, now Drake here is doing some squats. He says he's been powerlifting about 8 months, feels his squats are lagging behind, and this is 90 kilos for a set of 5 at a 6 RPE. Now, honestly, at a 6 RPE, it's gonna be tough to pick much out, but what we are seeing a little bit of is these knees shooting back and the hips shooting up. I think we're rushing a little bit out of the bottom position. I'd like to see you a little bit more conscious of how you're initiating that drive from the change of direction. So if we watch here, we hit the bottom, and the knees, I'm going to draw a line here to my best estimation are about there. As we come up, the knees shoot back quite a bit, and at heavier weights, this is likely going to be exaggerated, where we're going to see the knees shooting back and the hips shooting up. So I want you to make sure that you're putting some pressure through that forefoot, that you're attempting to keep those knees in that sort of same plane as you initiate the squat, and try to rely on those quads a lot out of the bottom to get a nice smooth start to the movement. Our next submission comes from Jennifer. Jennifer's doing some bench press, and she says it feels weird. She can't seem to fix it, and she's concerned about some elbow movement when she initiates the press off her chest. So let's take a look. And one of the first things I usually look at is the setup. Looks like she's doing a really good job trying to get her back nice and tight and get that weight kind of up onto her traps, which is exactly what we're looking for. We got a nice little arch there. And let's see how we do on the unrack. It looks like you could probably set up a little bit higher first off, so you're not having to unrack from quite so far back. If you set your body a little bit further up the bench, your shoulder would be about here, and it'd be a little bit easier to pop that bar out as opposed to reaching so far behind. So that's the first pointer there. The next one is going to be to make sure we maintain this back position when we unrack. See how we're popping the shoulders forward there when we unrack? You might be able to bring this rack height down one and get a little bit cleaner unrack. Now, the main thing she was talking about was that she gets this big scooping motion off the chest. Now, number one, we're doing touch and go reps. So I think we're going to need to become more comfortable with that bottom position, become more comfortable with the bottom of the range of motion. So from about here to here on the chest. And I think that's going to go a long ways. If you can slow things down and control it a little bit, number one, pull that bar out a little bit further so that you're locking your lats and shoulder blades down into position. Pull that bar out a little bit further and try to be nice and consistent. We're seeing some reps where the elbows come a little bit forward, some reps where the elbows are coming a little bit behind, and we're definitely rushing to and off the chest, causing really inconsistent bar paths. So number one is going to be practicing. Number two is going to be spending more time with the bar on your chest. So some long pause reps, some spoto press is another accessory movement that I like for getting used to decelerating the bar as it comes into the chest. And also I think we're kind of over tucking a little bit on the way down. So I think that when the elbows are out here, as you go to press, yes, the elbows are going to come back, but the idea is that the elbows come back and the bar comes back. That is sort of appropriate or a good cue to use for benching. But because we're over tucked and our elbows are too far forward, that swing looks like a bigger thing than it normally would be. So we got to work on control, consistency, becoming comfortable in the bottom position, and incorporate some long pause stuff. And I think that'll help you quite a bit, Jennifer. Now, Josh here is doing some deadlifts. He's 18. He's been lifting for about 1 year, and he said that people in his gym tell him that he stiff legs his deadlifts. So let's take a look. Now, I definitely do see where the criticism is coming from, right? We've got a pretty much a horizontal torso angle, and as we start to push, the knees go back even a little bit more. So what I would try to do, and it might be a little bit easier if you can widen this grip a tiny bit. A lot of the times, if we can get the knees out on the deadlift, we can get the sort of hip externally rotated, which will allow a little bit more room for your pelvis to come forward without dumping in underneath and being in flexion, right? So we can get a little bit of a more neutral back position. We can get a little bit more upright, potentially by widening the grip, pushing the knees out a little bit. And then I want you to imagine just being really patient when you initiate the lift. Don't rush it, and don't think about pulling the bar. Instead, think about pushing the floor away, right? So here, once the knees go back to a significant extent, we do get a little bit of that push, the torso angle staying relatively still. So you're doing an okay job here, but I think we're definitely losing a lot of position off the floor, and probably more position than is optimal. We're also changing the stance around between reps. That was actually a much better rep. See how when you come up off the floor, your knees are staying a little bit more forward there? That's going to be something to work on. Now, it also looks like you have really long femurs and a really short torso. So one thing that I might also recommend trying out, at least from a proprioception standpoint, or a figuring out where your body is in space and what positions feel like standpoint, would be try some sumo deadlifts. Try some nice wide stance sumo deadlifts. Now, I'm obviously not trying to convert everybody to sumo deadlifting, but I do think for a lot of people, doing some sumo deadlifts as a conventional deadlifter can lead to a lot of knowledge and experience in terms of how to position the body. So I think from a lot of standpoints, it can be useful, even if you're not going to switch over, to experiment with some sumo deadlifting as well. Like I said, grip a little wider, and let's see if that helps you, man. And now we have Leon doing some squats here. So Leon mentions in his email that one of the things that happens is he feels like his squat is okay, but when he pushes to ensure that he gets good competition depth, he says things go wrong. His back folds, he has some other issues. So I would like for anybody who's had some of these issues before, maybe you've fixed them. Maybe you can see something going on with Leon's squat that you could advise him on to help him out. So take a look at Leon's squat here. Leave your comments and your constructive criticism in the section, comment section below, and I will start off next week by giving Leon my own feedback. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.